Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And I am delighted today to introduce a new face to the channel. Guys, this is Nina Christopher of Nina's Chelsea Corner. Eagle-eyed fans might also recognise her from featuring frequently on Chelsea Fan TV, and also recently appeared on a segment on Sky Sports' The Fan Club segment. Absolutely amazing. Nina, thank you so much for coming onto the channel. How are you doing, mate?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and thanks for having me on. It's very nice to be here. Yeah, all good, mate. I'm excited to talk Chelsea. I mean, it's not particularly exciting to be a Chelsea fan right now, but it just comes with being it. You know, I feel like we hit a mid-season slump where everything goes sort of off in the air, and we're back at square one. So this is kind of feeling like standard season procedure at this point. So yeah, just ready for the chaos again, to be honest.
Yeah, December there's just something like my thing before we lost Moresca. I was like, why does Moresca hate Christmas? But then like the more I look into it, the more I'm like, no, it is actually just this mid-season thing. We really struggle. Actually, it's really interesting. Yeah. Something I really resonated with that you said on your Sky segment was, I've got it here actually, we're in competition with ourselves. And you kind of went to talk about how momentum is such an issue. And it's like, it feels like it's been that way for such a long time now. Like we'll string a run of results together and then we'll lose it. And it's just like, oh, what an absolute nightmare, man. So I thought that was absolutely great. One thing I would love to get your perspective on as well, and I'm sure a lot of my viewers will, is you are a season ticket holder and you're a match goer. So it's all fine and good for us armchair managers sat watching the telly and shouting at our cameras on YouTube and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But I'm really interested to get your perspective as a match goer. So just in how have the last few matches been atmosphere wise? You know, obviously there was the protest at the last one as well. What's it been like going to Chelsea games since Rosenior took over?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting because I think different matchday going fans would probably tell you similar things, but also might differentiate quite a bit. I think particularly it might be a generation thing as well, where the sort of the older Chelsea fans think quite differently to maybe how us younger fans do. So it's been quite difficult, to be honest. The atmosphere at Stamford Bridge, I think, has been a little bit concerning in the last few years. It's not just a this season thing. I think we've gradually hit a bit of a decline in what we deem to be a good home atmosphere. And what we've seen actually in the last couple of years is players have felt that playing at Stamford Bridge is quite hostile, which is never what you want really from your players. You want them to feel like they're supported and the fans are there to make noise and get behind the team. But actually it's been quite the opposite. So at the moment it's very difficult because the players sort of are receiving what's directed towards the owners and the hierarchy. So when you're hearing all the Clear Lake don't care about us, we don't care about Clear Lake, we just care about Chelsea FC, it's difficult because it really just does sort of translate onto the pitch. So I think that's been quite difficult. There's only so much you can really do as well as an individual to maybe start a positive chant. Yeah. And it definitely was there. I think if we take the Brentford game at the weekend, it was interesting because obviously we had a bit of a difficult start. João Pedro scored and then there was a bit of a lift and we had that, you know, the Chelsea chants. But then as soon as Brentford came out the blocks, just sort of hungry for that equaliser in the second half, the mood and there was just such a shift in transition and in the mood as well. And you're thinking you're 1-0 up, you want to support the players to go for another, because we know how vulnerable a 1-0 lead is, right? Especially at Stamford Bridge. So it's not a derby that we've done particularly well in recently. So it was just a bit of a shame because then straight away it was again about singing about Clear Lake, and I just thought I absolutely understand and I'm all for voicing your concerns towards the hierarchy because they're obviously listening and they're there and they're present. But I am also there to support the team to get through the game and to also see out 3 points. For me as a matchday going fan, that's number one. So I didn't completely agree with that. But yeah, it is flat at times. There was loads of moments of silence and you're thinking, I know this isn't perhaps the most entertaining derby, but it's still a London derby, right? And it's still one we haven't done well in. So yeah, it was quite tough. And then obviously you mentioned the protest before that. I wouldn't really call it a protest. It was maybe a gathering with a few banners and some messages there. But yeah, overall it was quite flat. There was a lot of contradictory statements as well, like again singing out towards the owners and then singing against Tottenham and then singing world champions. And I'm like, what's going on over here? So it's a bit crazy at the minute. But I mean, it just, you never know what you're getting with each match day, generally, like on the pitch, off the pitch. I just think, you know, we get like sort of thrown into the pit every single week and there's just a new grenade that just drops and then you don't know what's coming. So that just feels like Chelsea at the minute.
Yeah, it's definitely, it must be really difficult as well for match going fans, because there's like, it is so conflicting, isn't it? Everything that's going on at the moment. And kind of what I've just got from a lot of what you said about the atmosphere is it almost sounds like we've lost our home advantage. Do you know what I mean? Which is like,
really exactly that. Yeah.
It's so important, isn't it? Especially in these derbies and stuff, and a lot of the games that you should just be put into bed. It must be really difficult for the players not to feel like they've got the backing of the fans. But also I understand it from a match going perspective, man. It's like, it's not just this season. It's not even just last season. And to be completely honest, it's not even just since Blue Code took over either. Like, obviously the Champions League was, you know, our kind of last moment in the sun. But even before that
feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. But even in and around the years before that, there was a lot of inconsistency with managers and performance and title challenges not quite being there and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, people weren't really on board with Sarri, and do you know what I mean? You know, it's so for me, like, we're talking about getting on to a decade of inconsistent performances and people struggling to connect to the club and stuff. So yeah, 100% appreciate it, man. Vis-a-vis the protests, it's a shame, man. Do you know what I mean? Because the thing is, if if the message was really strong and congruent, then ultimately I think that would be a lot better. But like, you know, we were talking about it a little bit before the stream, the messaging was a little bit mixed and stuff. Yeah. So do you think that, you know, we won't spend too long talking about this, but I'm just interested. Do you think that there's going to be more protests? Obviously this group, the core group, are feeling really strong about it, and ultimately I guess that can be built on. Do you think that we might see more protests in the future with a bit of a stronger, more direct message?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's generally what people, or those that were there and present, the general consensus among them was that this is something they want to continue on doing. Otherwise, it's like pointless. I mean, if you remember last year, we also had a protest prior to the Southampton game. I think it was in February, if you remember. So it's kind of like our little annual thing. Yeah. And then that led to nothing at all, because actually we picked up a little bit of momentum after we got into a bit of a groove. Like, we had a stronger finish to the season. Well, it was sluggish, but, you know, we got back into the Champions League. So ended up fulfilling our goal in the end, but it just felt like it was quite futile now looking back. And now people sort of want to learn from that and maybe create a bit more of a consistent approach to doing it, like in a similar way to the Strasbourg fans. I think a lot of people are sort of looking to them and saying every single game they are making themselves loud and clear. There's a big group of them, but as I said to you sort of before we started, I actually realised after this weekend that those who really believe in protesting and making their voices heard are actually a minority. And it's probably incredibly strange to say that, because if you read online and you connect with fans in different social media spaces, you might think, oh, this is a very united sort of belief here. But when I speak to people at games, a lot of them either aren't maybe too aware, or they're not too sure, or they don't really believe in it or want to take part. I have had a lot of like older fans who've said, well, I'm only going to continue going for another couple years. I'm not really fit anymore to be to go to games. So I'd just rather enjoy and like sort of leave that to the side. So it's interesting when you've got so many different things, because I think we know that the most united protests and the biggest sort of outcomes are reached when there's a big group and you're talking a massive number there. So I'm all for, you should absolutely do something, because it's better than saying, oh, do nothing and, you know, nothing changes. I definitely do encourage that. Like, we as fans, I think we do have power. I think people sort of say, well, you know, you're up against multi-millionaires, billionaires even here, what are we going to do? But actually, you know, we support the club, we go to games. A lot of people have told me, well, stop going. And I'm like, yeah, but I've already paid for the season ticket prior to the game. If I don't go, somebody else will. And some people might say, well, that's a cheap excuse because, you know, just don't rock up to the game. And I say, fine to that. Okay, I could do that, but not everyone will, because, you know, there's so many factors that come into it. You know, we're in a cost of living crisis. People like have paid a lot of money to go to these games. My parents have season tickets up in Westview, which costs so much money as well. It's generally quite insane. So it's very difficult because people have paid money, and if I don't go, someone else will. There's people who would sell an arm and a leg to go to Stamford Bridge to watch a game. And as I said to you, we're just a minority of people who believe that. So that stadium will still be filled. There will still be people who go. So it's, I don't know, there's a lot of factors that come into it. But I think, to answer your question, it probably will continue on. I'm just a bit worried about like the right methods, or like how many people actually will do it, and if it just ends up being quite flat. I mean, it was good because there was a lot of media coverage on the day, and a lot of, you know, different sort of people and journalists sort of covered it, so it got attention, I suppose, which we know is going to reach them. They're going to be watching, they're going to be looking, but certainly if you want to see a result or something happen, you got to keep going. But as we'll talk about in a moment, I'm sure, with the transfers, etc., it kind of sounds like they're not really going to change the model, are they?
Yeah. I guess this is one of the things, isn't it? Is like, it feels like it would actually be quite easy to get a lot of the fans back on side in terms of just seeing direction.
It's so easy, by the way, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. That's the thing. And but it's, you know, it's one of those things, isn't it? So obviously, like, you know, we'll touch on it now. So Jeremy Jacquet is the, you know, the kind of guy that we're looking at getting at the moment. Another 20-year-old French centre back from Ligue 1. Now, Stade Rennais have created some amazing players over the time. Désiré Doué and Ousmane Dembélé, like, you know, they've you know, so it's possible this guy could turn out.
French pronunciation.
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
How I say that name.
Yeah. I lived in France for 4 years, so I try to keep up.
Okay, makes sense,
I'm a little bit rusty, but I try to keep up with it. But yeah, 100%. It's I think the thing is, the problem we've got now is Jeremy Jacquet could be a great player, but it kind of almost, in terms of what we're talking about with like the feeling of the club and the model and stuff, unless he turns out to be like the next Virgil van Dijk or John Terry or whatever, it almost doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Because it is, as much as it is about, like, for me, I like to be, I'm quite positive about the player in general, but I do understand the visual that it's another 20-year-old that we are ultimately buying to fit a model. And, you know, like I say, I think it wouldn't be amazingly difficult in order to get, you know, the fans back on side by getting one or two players over the next couple of windows that have got a bit of experience, a bit of winning mentality. So, like I say, I did a video yesterday comparing Jacquet to Badiashile and Tosin, and stats-wise, he definitely, like, he's a better defender. He's a reasonable passer. And, you know, he's played 16 games out of 16 and started 16 for Stade Rennais this season. So it doesn't look like he's a bad player at all. Do you know what I mean? We've gone in for what I think are worse players before, but also I understand, like I say, for me, it'd be so easy for the owners, if they've got this kind of money to spend. It's like, just go out and get someone that shows you that you're listening to us. Do you know what I mean? And you're listening to the fans and stuff. So what do you think about Jeremy Jacquet? And do you think that, you know, so for me, I think I'm not sure about Bluco out, just because the business and financial side of it, you know, they've signed up to run the club for 10 years. That was part of the agreement when they bought it in the first place. So I think that rather than, for me, the message should be less about Bluco out and it should be Bluco change. Do you know what I mean? It's like, rather than trying to get them to, you know, go out and get someone else in and whatever, like, if we can, you know, I say we are, like, I'm not a match goer, but if the fan base can convince them to put winning before money, I think that would be really important. So yeah, just tell me a little bit what you think about Jeremy Jacquet and whether there's a chance of experience coming in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to pick up on what you said, that he could be a good player. How many times have we said that about a transfer in recent years? You know, it just seems like every single youngster that we bring in has got the potential. We see the good cameos, we see the nice compilations on YouTube. They all look great on YouTube, right? And on, like, the little videos.
The comps, mate,
actually, when you look at the sort of the long term and how much they actually have to offer, most of them come off the back of maybe half a year in senior football, or maybe a full year, etc. As we've signed many young players, and that's the problem. So I do agree about the change thing, because actually all we really want is to just sign a little bit of experience to allow these young players to learn on the job. You know, I always say it's such an important thing that goes further than just the footballing qualities and abilities you have on the pitch. It's all about the leadership, having that figure to just say, you know, pull your socks up, you're behind on a result, but, you know, we can absolutely do something here. Like we had Thiago Silva, right? Thiago Silva was just that anchor for us, and I don't think we replaced even the smidge of anything that he had to offer. 100%. And I think that's the biggest mistake, and I will always go back to that, because why did half of our defenders look remotely decent and promising? Because they were alongside Silva. He was able to elevate them, you know, whether it be Badiashile playing alongside him, Disassi, like all of these players that we actually gave the benefit of the doubt and said maybe they could come good. No, it was because they had Silva alongside them, and I think that made such a big difference, and he was so great at being a captain without being a captain. And I think we've been missing that. And you can so see it, like how many times we bring up the lack of experience on the pitch. And a lot of people might say and come back to that, well, actually, your players aren't so young. You know, a lot of them are now kind of 23, 24. They've been in the Premier League for some time. They should be having that experience. But it is quite different, isn't it? And you look at sort of like Liverpool, say you mentioned Van Dijk there, what he has to offer there, how he's sort of, you know, settled in the youngsters that sort of Klopp brought in through the academy when he was still here, and how he made everything so seamless. Having a character like that is just so incredibly important. And we don't have many of them. I'd argue Reece James is that guy for us. And actually another thing I see as a matchday going fan is often he is the player that will say to the crowd, you know, cheer up. If he's going over to take a corner, he's edging the Matthew Harding fans to just make some noise. Like, these players need it. They all look dejected sometimes. And I think, you know, Reece is the one. Even when Cole Palmer scored his penalty against Brentford, he didn't really seem like he celebrated, right? A lot of people picked up on that. He looked quite sort of, and Reece went over and said, mate, you know, celebrate, pushed him over and said, you know, go celebrate with the fans. And it is so unbelievably important. So as you say, it's so simple, yet so difficult, because you know, they so believe in this model of turning young potential good looking players into very good prospects long term, maybe make a profit on them, but that's what they seem like, assets rather than players who come in to make an immediate impact 100%. On the pitch and help the club get to reaching goals. Ultimately, I don't really believe in the theory that they don't want to win, because if they want to generate money on these players, they do have to win, right? But it's just the approach, and it's the sacrifices that they've made that we fans aren't okay with, because fine, we dealt with not being in Europe, but then the way that things have sort of developed after, and the way that even now we wonder, are we going to be in Europe next year? You know, is this something that might slip away again? That's not a healthy place to be, and us fans never would sacrifice that just to have players who might come good in the future. We were never going to be okay with that. It's not called entitlement, it's just being called realistic. We need some experienced players in there. So I don't know, I don't really believe it in it anymore that we're going to go and get them, because like you say, we just keep seeming to look at the wrong players, and it just seems like we're going to continue on, sign players, move them on, replace them with the same exact type of player, same profile, same experience, or rather inexperience, and then it just goes round in circles.
100%. I think the issue is like, it's not even that experienced, but I know that they were interested in Mark Guehi, for instance. But I think the thing with Mark Guehi is he turned us down.
I'm not over it still.
I think, and that's the thing, you know. And also, you know, obviously they both went to City, but there was that little bit, and people say it's like PR stuff, but I believe there was genuine interest in Antoine Semenyo as well. But I also understand that these players turned us down. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't so much as we didn't push for them. They were just like, nah, mate, we're going to go to City and play for the best manager of all time. Do you know what I mean? So I do like, maybe it's copium, maybe it's hopium, and I do believe that there is a thing there that if the right player arises, they will make some sort of effort for it, because Guehi would have been transformative, I think, in terms of you know, and Antoine Semenyo, I think he's like 24, 25. I think that's kind of the best we can hope for. Like, I don't think we're going to go out and get that 28-year-old. But I do think that we can stop buying teenagers, essentially. Do you know what I mean? And throwing them in, because the thing is, like, what it looked like from a fan perspective was they were just going to keep buying players and hope that a high enough percentage of them turned out like Cole Palmer. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like he was relatively unknown, really not much experience at all, but he obviously hit the ground running. That's such a perfect storm of situations where he had the motivation.
A very rare one though, too, right? Very rare.
Exactly, 100%. And that's the thing is, it's not realistic to be like, if we buy 100 players, 11 of them will turn out to be like Cole Palmer, and we're well on the way to that, man. We've bought, I looked at a list the other day, it's like 60, nearly 70 players, something like that, since Blue Co have taken over. It is nuts, absolutely nuts. So to pick up on Cole Palmer, actually, because you mentioned him there a little bit, I did want to talk to you about that as well. Cole Palmer, obviously, like you said, obviously looked really dejected after scoring his goal. And that is maybe the most telling thing you can ever see in football. When a player scores a goal, normally if a player doesn't celebrate, it's because it's against their old club and there's some sort of respect or something going on in there. But with Cole Palmer not celebrating that goal, so it's you know, there's a few interpretations. There could be he's not happy with what's going on in terms of, like, you know, why am I here or whatever, I'm wasting my time. Or do you think it could be something just like he felt like it was unearned because Liam Delap won the penalty, he didn't have an amazing game, Although I am seeing sort of mixed opinions on how well he played in that game. So what do you think is going on with Cole Palmer at the moment? Do you think it's a case of he's fed up with Chelsea, or do you think that he's actually kind of lambasting his own performance and his own lack of input, and maybe that goal to him felt a little bit unearned?
I think it could be a combination of those things. I think people could interpret it differently as well. I think there definitely is some truth in, again, those points that you just made there. But I think I'm still among the fans who want to protect Cole a little bit more rather than straight up criticise him at the moment, because I think if anyone's got the licence to be protected and not criticised among everyone, it is Cole Palmer because of what he's been for us.
Yeah.
But I saw a lot of exhaustion, actually, I'd say. I think there was a lot of, in terms of body language, people picked up on him being quite uninterested, but actually that is just Cole's body language. Even when he's playing his very best football, he just kind of looks like he's shrugging it off, like, yeah, this is just standard, right? We've seen him score incredible goals and he does his, celebration, but he just looks so unbothered because that's just him as a person.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that, the injury is a massive factor, I think. I think the fact that he's maybe not recovering well, I think we always seem, I always sometimes think, footballers are superheroes. They don't get hurt. They don't feel pain. But they do, right? They're human beings, and like us, when we're in pain or we've got an injury, recovery can be slow. It takes a toll on your mental health. I think he's going through a very rough time physically and mentally. I think in terms of him, as obviously that's going to have an effect on his all-round game as well. Yeah. I think also there could be, like you say, an element of unhappiness, really. And I think a lot of the players might feel it, because if the news about Enzo Moresca did come as a shock to them, you can imagine that maybe they're also having a little bit of, not so much scrutiny, but rather, asking questions of what is going on here, or like, where are we headed? And you've got a new manager that's coming through the door, and now you have to adapt to their tactics and their philosophy. It's a lot of change to go through, and Palmer's been around long enough now to be part of these constant changes. Enzo Fernandez equally, because he was signed now some time back, and if we're hearing that maybe he wants a way out or he's not quite happy, then the players must be feeling it too, right? Just as we are, they are hands-on, coming face to face with it. So I think it could be all those things, but I don't think he's fully fit. And I do think that he's going through what is quite a rough patch. But, I think there's definitely, we know what Cole Palmer is. He is an incredible footballer, and I don't think that has changed. I still very much believe in him. And I think what's even greater, and the sort of small hope or excitement I have about Chelsea that we still haven't seen, is a fully fit Cole Palmer with an Estevao who's starting games, and a fit Joao Pedro as well up top, with whoever you want to put out on the left. I mean, how great could that attack be with everybody at their very optimum level? I mean, Estevao and Cole Palmer, we're yet to see what that partnership could look like.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's something to look forward to as a Chelsea fan.
So interesting that you've talked about this attack. Actually, that kind of leads me on to something I spoke to one of my friends Kai about from channel called Behind the Dugouts. He was of the opinion that, and I kind of agree with him, that Moresca kind of coached a little bit of the magic out of Cole Palmer, and he was concerned about him coaching the magic out of Estevao Willian as well. So this is a thing, isn't it? Is like Cole Palmer not only has not been on amazing form for a long time, like it's like the Jack Grealish thing at Pep with Pep at City, isn't it? It's like you've got these three amazing players who have got all of this talent and ability, but then you kind of shackle them to this really rigid system. So do you think that is something that is going to change under Liam Rosenior? Like, I think Joao Pedro is a great example of that as well. If you look at Joao Pedro when he came in, he looked absolutely unplayable, but you got to think there wouldn't have been a lot of coaching going on in the initial few weeks that he was with us. It would have been very much like, just play your game and we'll just kind of get through it. And he was absolutely unbelievable. But obviously, as the time's gone on, he's looked a lot more muted. Obviously, fitness has been an issue as well. Cole Palmer, and even with Estevao, it looked like he was desperately trying to put his magic out there underneath Moresca, but because he was, you have to hug that byline, you've got to be out on that wing, and do you know what I mean, if it's not looking, then pass it back and whatever. Do you think that with Liam Rosenior we might see a little bit more freedom from some of these ultimately magical players that we've got, or do you expect maybe to see a little bit more of the same based on what you've seen so far from him?
I actually don't think that too much is going to change under Rosenior from what we saw Moresca, and I think that's actually kind of the whole point about appointing Rosenior in the first place, because I think the way that they've envisioned these players playing in this system is very much how they kind of want to continue on. I do totally agree with you about the magic thing. Actually, I have thought about it, and I think often maybe why I cut the sort of the centre forward some slack is we play through our wingers so much, especially like how we did under Moresca, is you're almost taking out your number 10 and your number 9 out the game, or you're nullifying their threat without, do you know what I mean, using them. And we often struggle to play through the middle. It's been a very, very consistent pattern, and we've become so predictable because all you have to do is double up on our wingers, shut out the fullbacks if they're overlapping or underlapping, and that's it. We're back into midfield, and it's the same rinse and repeat cycle. Cole Palmer at times would have the ability to send a quick, through ball, and maybe our centre forward would read the run or not. But I think that's been a big struggle, and I do think actually that does come down to the manager, because even when Cole sort of came back, to me, he just looked like he was completely kind of shut out from the game a lot of the time. I think with Estevao I think Moresca did know exactly what a gem he has on his hands, because, I mean, the most famous game, Barcelona, of course, and Estevao absolutely outshining every single player on that pitch. But, he ultimately did have the licence. He could sort of roam. He was obviously out on the right, but he roamed in centrally as well. He occupied different spaces on the pitch. And I think and really, really hope that Rosenior will do that as well. I already have Rosenior in my good books after the Brentford game, because he didn't sub off Estevao. I thought he would. It was the Brentford game, right, that he played until the very end. Or was it the Arsenal game?
I think it was the Arsenal game. Cole Palmer got 90 minutes against Brentford.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. So it was Estevao, because he was on a yellow, wasn't he? Yeah. And I thought, oh no, here comes subs. Estevao's coming off. And actually, Rosenior recognised that he was a consistent threat, and he encouraged that. He didn't just bring him off. Moresca would have, especially being on a yellow, especially like losing in a game, he would have brought on a defender, took him out, but he let him play. So I'm hoping that he recognises Chelsea need Estevao right now. We are so void of creativity on the pitch, especially when Cole's having a bit of a quiet moment. You get that with Estevao, and he's so great. He's technical. He can take on his man. He backs himself to shoot. He can surprise defenders, and that's exactly what you need from your winger. He is still very much playing with a point to prove as well, because we know how good he is, but he feels like he has to prove himself every time to get picked to start. So I like that about him. I suppose it's going to keep him hungry. He is young though. You can see that, the way he picks up bookings sometimes. You think you are 18. That's a very 18-year-old yellow card there. For sure. Something to manage, but to answer your question, I mean, I think Estevao should be starting. Don't you agree? He should be starting games for us. Yeah,
I 100% think so. I think it's a difficult one, and you've kind of hit on it, because he's so young and stuff. Like what we need, if we look at the fitness issues we're having our team with, massively overplaying people from a reasonably young age at the moment. Like I think Cole Palmer is the perfect example of that. Do you know what I mean? It's like he played. And basically, we were Cole Palmer FC under Pochettino, relied on him really, really, really heavily. And then he just keeps on. Moresca, very much the same, obviously. Even when, and I kind of respect Moresca for this, when Cole Palmer had his massive dip in form, the beginning of it last December, he kept on getting game time. But also, what I don't respect Moresca for is things like the Man United game. Robert Sanchez gets sent off. You've got Estevao and Cole Palmer on. Cole Palmer is literally injured. Estevao is champing at the bit for a game. And you take Estevao off and leave Cole Palmer on, who you end up taking off anyway because he's injured.
And he took off Neto in that game as well, didn't he?
Yeah, mate, that was Moresca's crazy sub decisions. He instantly just went, right, I'll try and get a draw out of this game as soon as Rob Sanchez got sent off.
Mate. You're in the game out the window. 100%. Don't need it.
Yeah, so with Estevao, I obviously I want to see him as much as possible, but also just based on what we've seen, man, I'm just Moises Caicedo sometimes doesn't train and then plays a game anyway. Do you know what I mean? We've literally seen that. Enzo Fernandez has potentially the synovitis issue is from being overplayed and stuff. And as much as I want to see Estevao Willian, just looking at our squad at the moment, I'm just so terrified of losing him. Do you know what I mean? So what I would like to see is Estevao getting more starts in big games rather than smaller ones, because that's kind of where he started, right? Like he would get, Barcelona was obviously quite different. He was going to get that chance against Man United, but he was largely played at the beginning of the season against the teams we were expecting to beat, the cup games and stuff. Do you know what I mean? But what I think we should do, I think he's good enough, is start him against Napoli. Do you know what I mean? Start him in the Arsenal, the next leg in the Carabao Cup and that. I think give him big moments, but I don't think play him every game. Just because I'm just worried, man, about like
managing him.
Yeah, 100%.
I do hear that. I totally hear that. I think maybe it's more of like a match day going fan thing as well, because no player excites me as much as Estevao does. You know, honestly, even at the start, like you would just see him warm up and the crowd is already like excited, like hell yeah, bring Estevao on. We're about to see like good football. We're about to be excited, and it's just insane how an 18-year-old can genuinely ignite a whole whole stadium, right?
I mean, I guess the thing is we're just starved, aren't we? We're just so starved for that magic.
Are. It's like Cole Palmer arriving. Do you remember, like when Cole Palmer came to the club, we were so deprived of happiness that the moment he started showing us his tricks and flicks and his goals, we were like, wow, this is it. We've got our next Eden Hazard here. It was just honestly insane to see. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that right now for me, he is the most consistent in terms of when he comes on, what he offers you. You're getting the same level. You pretty much know what you're getting with Estevao. And I think even though he's 18, I see less inconsistency than with our other wingers, you know?
Definitely.
Like, say, Garnacho, Gittins. I mean, I'd rather play Estevao on the left even if you want to play Neto on the right. I genuinely would rather start him over there on the left. So I totally get you, and maybe it's a fair assessment. Maybe I'm just a bit more selfish because I just really, really want to see him play.
I actually think you've hit it perfectly. Like, and I mentioned this at the start of the video. Do you know what I mean? It's like I am an armchair fan, and I sit and watch from behind a screen and whatever. But I'm only shown the things. Do you know what I mean? That the production team, they make the cuts and whatever. But at the end of the day, you're a match going fan, and like I said, atmosphere is so important. And one big thing we talked about at the start of the video as well is potentially Chelsea losing their home advantage because they're not getting behind the team. But those little moments where you see Estevao do a flick or a trick or skin 3 players in a row or something like that, that's what gets you off your seat and that's what gets you going. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's 100% something in that. I think essentially we're both kind of right for different reasons. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily a black or white thing there. It's like I do think that Estevao needs to be protected to an extent only because of the physicality of the Premier League, how many games there are now in a season cycle. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, if Estevao does a trick or a flick that gets the crowd off of their feet and really excited, that benefits the entire team, doesn't it? It's not, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's kind of a cycle, isn't it? So yeah, I think Liam Rosenior will know that as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, one thing I want to go back to as well, we were talking about the tactics a minute ago and you mentioned something really interesting. I think I've actually seen now, it's only been 3 games and stuff. The Arsenal game in particular, I want to talk about. You said we really struggled to play through the middle, and 100% under Moresca, it was like a smile, wasn't it? It was just like wings, midfield, centre back, midfield, wing, and then vice versa all of the time. Do you know what I mean? Just back and forth. But one thing I've noticed against Arsenal that I was really happy to see, Enzo Fernandez and Andre Santos trying to make line splitting passes and trying to make risky decisions and playing through the middle. And that made our attackers look better. Do you know what I mean? Mark Gue unfortunately got the start in that one, which was a little bit nuts. But at the same time, I saw that and I was like, oh, do you know what? That I haven't seen that in such a long time. It's like even though it's hard, even though we were being pressed, it was like, take that pressure and try and play through it, which is something I don't think we saw with Moresca. And vis-a-vis the wingers are cutting in now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, the difficult thing with Moresca is it was just like Garnacho's got it. Okay, he's maybe going to make a cut back 10% of the time, but 90% of the time he's going to pass it back to the fullback or the midfielder, and then it's going to find its way over to the other side, or they're going to put a cross in that's going to go to no one. Do you know what I mean?
That's the issue. That's what we see so much, like spamming crosses. I used to praise Neto for it because I said he's actually like crossing, he's doing the right things, but he's going to no one. Nobody's meeting those crosses. So yeah, I agree with that.
So as well, this is another thing I like about Rosenior that I think we've seen a tiny little bit of at the moment, but ultimately based on his time at Strasbourg, he's good with a striker as far as we've seen. Joaquin Panicelli and Emmanuel Omega are both of them I would be more than happy to see in our team. Obviously Omega we will see at the end of the season, but Joaquin Panicelli, like, he's done really well with him. So I am excited by the idea that potentially, Rosenior's focus on getting the ball through the middle ultimately will benefit people like Cole Palmer, but also Liam Delap and João Pedro, which I think we're starting to see a little bit already. Liam Delap has looked better in the last 3-4 games since Callum McFarlane took over than he has the entire season. Do you know what I mean? And again, I think think, I am putting this largely down to Moresca's tactics and stuff. I know a lot of people will instantly point to the board didn't give him the centre-back that he wanted and blue code and whatever. But at the same time, it's like I do put a lot of that bad run of form that we've been down to Moresca in his tactics. I think he was a bit stodgy. Right. And I think also...
He wasn't perfect by all means. I think with Moresca, it wasn't that we're so in love with him as a manager and as a coach and that we don't see Chelsea without him. It was more the overarching sort of like dooming feeling of, oh, here we go again, like he's also not good enough, like where to? And it's like, because the sort of shortlist every time we see the coaches have slimmer and slimmer credentials in terms of who they've managed and what league they've managed. And I don't want to be disrespectful to Rosenior, because I think from all of the research I've done and all of the people I've spoken to, everyone says he is a really good coach. And even though, I mean, you can only manage what's in front of you, right? In everywhere he's been, he has sort of implemented his style and whatnot, and he's been quite good at managing players individually. So it all sounds great, but it's just as fans, and this is another thing you mentioned at the start, like the fact that the atmosphere hasn't been great for maybe like the last decade, we've not really formed affinities with managers either, if that makes sense. Like, bar Thomas Tuchel, I can't really remember especially recently being in love with a coach, if that makes sense. I call them coaches now because they're not managers anymore, are they? No, 100%. But that also plays into it. So I think it's like we each time are just so much more apprehensive. Like, I didn't really massively like Graham Potter. I don't think we all did. Pochettino as well. I think I backed him more because of the fear of changing again and just going with someone else. Same with Moresca. So it was more like where to rather than, oh, I'm really sad he's going. A lot of people said to me, Nina, I'm happy Moresca's gone. I don't think he was ever going to take us to a Premier League title. And I think it's interesting because, he made mistakes, but we had some of our best performances against like the top teams in Europe, and he beat some of the best managers in the world out there. So, he definitely had his good moments, but I agree with you that certain decisions, like you mentioned the Man United game, even the Brighton game with the red cards, the management was poor and his reaction sometimes. So it's all fun and games beating the big teams, but we can't beat teams lower below us. So what's that all about? Rosenior, over to you, mate.
This is exactly, for me, the thing that Rosenior has to come in and do. And to be fair, again, it's only 3 games, so we'll see what happens. But for me, the first port of call for Liam Rosenior, beat the teams that we're supposed to beat, because it doesn't matter for me if you beat Barcelona, if you beat Liverpool, if you beat, even if we were to be beating Man City and Arsenal and stuff, it's like, that's all fine and good. But when you're losing to Leeds, when you're getting 2 points against Bournemouth, when you're losing to Atalanta, when Brentford, you can't get, you only get a point, Crystal Palace at the start of the season, Sunderland that we lost to, these are the games. Yeah. So the way I see football, whether I'm right or not, I've got no idea, but the way I see it is, title winning teams beat the teams that they're supposed to beat and have a good chance of beating teams that are at the same level or better than them. Moresca, for me, kind of went in with this like Uno reverse of it, where he was like, I'm going to beat Barcelona, I'm going to beat PSG, I'm going to beat Liverpool, but I'm not going to beat Brentford, and I'm going to make Leeds look like Real Madrid. And for me, it's like, that's my first port of call for Liam Rosenior. Like the Brentford, for me, like the game wasn't amazing to watch, but the message there is we beat Brentford 2-0. Regardless, it was an ugly win. I'm expecting to see some ugly wins if we're getting them, but I would rather get ugly wins against the teams that we're supposed to beat rather 100%. Than, do you know what I mean? That's just how I feel for with the Moresca thing. Like my whole thing, like I was never Moresca out. The only manager, and you've mentioned him, that I've ever been like, get this guy out of my club was Graham Potter, because not only 38% win percentage, awful, really, really, really bad. Do you know what I mean? That's terrible. He had no character. I mean, there was nothing
inspiring either, was there? I can't remember like seeing Graham Potter at the wheel at Chelsea in a certain game and going, "Oh my god, this is brilliant! This is such a good day."
It was so like substitute teacher, man. Like the press conferences where he try and swear and stuff to do like
always gave it everything.
Oh mate, it was just so cringe. And the thing is, like, character. So Moresca had like obvious tactical acumen, but I thought he was lacking a bit in character. The one thing that Liam Rosenior for me has obviously got already is character, and that tells you that ultimately he may well be a very good man manager, which I think I'm not sure about Moresca, because he was it's quite stoic and stony kind of character, wasn't he? So already I'm excited by you know, and look, man, like, I could be completely wrong. We can get to the end of January and lose 5 games in a row, and then we're just going to be back where we're starting. But just in this kind of brief moment that we're in at the moment before all of that comes, I feel like I'm seeing changes in the team that I can see ultimately benefiting the team. I love the generational PR run that he's been on. Do you know what I mean? Going out and doing all of these like show-stopping press conferences. Yeah.
I find it a bit too much, though.
Yeah,
I think I find it a bit too much. There's some things that, because I mean, again, like there was someone I was speaking to, I can't remember, had met Rosenior at Hull.
Right.
I think they were working there. They were part of sort of, I don't know, physio team or medical team, something like that. And they said that he was genuinely like a really lovely guy, like one-on-one, really sweet, very nice, very caring, has a good way with people. And you can see that, right? It comes across, I think before he did his first press conference, there was a video that went round of him like introducing himself to all of the journalists in the room at the time. Yeah. Sometimes I think he says a bit too much. Yeah. And it's kind of like, don't overdo it. We totally get it. But also I'm a bit traumatized by all of the interviews I've seen managers that arrived at the club do. Like, you know, we were all like, wow, Pochettino, like all of the videos that went round about his aura and everything. And then same with Moresca. And I'm like,
and the barbecues.
But one thing I do notice is that, you know, and he does, obviously when at the end of the game, like win or lose, the players do like a kind of a lap and a clap for the fans and stuff. And Rosenior actually came out and sort of, they never ever really come to the touchline anymore. They used to sort of come closer, but now it's more like sort of go around like the centre and then straight in they go. Rosenior came all the way down to like the flag almost to clap the fans. It was very much like loud clapping, and obviously there's the jokes about him clapping without gloves so that people could hear him clap. And I'm just like, no, like that's a little bit too much. I want to hide. But I think with Rosenior is he knows what the expectations are. Like he's not going to be oblivious to that. I think he's very much aware. Like, yes, of course, we know that he was hired because he gets on with the hierarchy. We're not stupid. You know, he said the things and he would have known how they operate at Strasbourg. I guess he already knows what he's kind of walking into from that perspective. Sure. And he will know like how apprehensive us fans are about him. It's nothing personal to him even. Like our problems are with those further above, those who would have appointed him, etc. But I don't know, I'm supporting him 100%, but I can't lie and tell you that I am so inspired and I feel like this is going to be something great. But as you say, go and win those games, because if we beat Leeds now, if we beat Burnley, we've got like a very interesting run coming
really
up, isn't
favourable
it?
for sure.
So yeah, you say favourable, but is it favourable? You know, so we have to see how that's going to play out. And I got clipped up not long ago before that, the Barcelona and the Arsenal game. We played Burnley, actually, funnily enough. We beat them, but I said that I thought my exact words are, I'm more scared of playing Burnley than I am playing Arsenal and Barcelona, to be quite precise. My community will know because that did rounds on Twitter and everything. So it was funny, but I said that because I genuinely think Chelsea, like history says, we perform better against the bigger teams and we struggle against teams that make life hard and sit back. I don't even think Burnley sat back at us that much in that game, but it was definitely tougher, right? So yeah, and then we went and had the game of our lives against Barcelona and then almost beat Arsenal with a player disadvantage. So it turned out to be quite positive, you know. But yeah, so the big test for Rosenior is actually beat the teams that we've now lost to, drop points to,
100%.
Beat the teams that we are in this position because of. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
That's exactly what Rosenior needs to do here. So yeah, like you say, you could beat the Cities, the Arsenals. We haven't done that, unfortunately. However, this was my biggest worry coming into the season as well, actually, because I said, you know, when there was talks about us challenging for the title, are we ready to win it even? That was quite an overarching thing. Can Chelsea win the Premier League this year? And I said, the thing with Chelsea is we've not seen us be consistent over 38 games since we won the league. And do you know what I mean? And even then we had like dips in the roads or whatever. But it's like right now it's so hard to see Chelsea go on a run. We can't. A winning streak is almost as difficult as, you know, sort of winning your next game. So we need to get in a run. That's absolutely massive. Momentum is so important. And we shouldn't wait till the end of the season. It's still too narrow. We're still too close to the teams at the bottom. So yeah, a run is going to be so important right now. And if we win ugly, fine. I'm not that interested right now if we're playing the best football.
100%.
Just go win games.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered that we didn't have a pretty game of football against Brentford. We got 3 points.
That's exactly where I'm at with it, man. And this seems like a good. I've actually got a list of the next lot of fixtures, and I just want to sort of talk them about a little bit and see what you think. So, like I say, I think we've both established here the most important thing to do is to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Like the way I see it, if you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat and maybe struggle against some of the top teams, that gets you in the Champions League almost definitely. Do you know what I mean? And then challenging for a title, that means then going toe to toe with those bigger teams. So obviously Wednesday, I think it is Paphos. After that, we've got Crystal Palace. I think that's away. Then we've got Napoli in their backyard, which is going to be a tough one. Then we've got West Ham, and then we've got Arsenal. So if we just, in terms of Premier League, we've got Crystal Palace and West Ham. We absolutely should be winning both of those games. Palace.
So that's 6 points for me.
Yeah.
That has to be.
Yeah, there absolutely has to be 100%. West Ham are having a torrid season. Do you know what I mean? And Crystal Palace in particular, they're there to be beaten at the moment because of all of the rhetoric. And if we know anything about like being weak because of rhetoric, like, do you know what I mean? Chelsea fans know that really well. So, you know, Palace are obviously going to, you know, Mateta's looking for a way out at the moment. I think Juventus or someone's been interested in him. Mark Gurley's gone to Man City. Glasner's come out and said that he's leaving at the end of the season. Palace are there to be beaten, and like I say, West Ham are just poor. West Ham are poor. But West Ham, another team that were ultimately ruined by Graham Potter, and you know that should
the Potter effect.
Oh mate, the Potter effect, man. We absolutely should be getting 6 points in the bag for those. So, and I think as well, Paphos, bit of a free hit maybe because this is their first season in the Champions League. They are, you know, fair play to them, absolutely. But we've 100% got the quality there. Napoli, 100%. Yeah, that's going to be tough. There's a lot of narrative around that. A lot of Premier League players in there, you know, obviously Conte, Lukaku, we know very, very well. McTominay and Rasmus Højlund will have a point to prove just by playing Premier League opposition, but Napoli have only won one game in the Champions League so far. They've got Juventus in what is a 6-pointer for them 3 days before that as well. So not even just like how good are the teams, like the narrative surrounding a lot of these teams we've got coming up also plays into our favour. And if we can win those 4 games going into the Arsenal game, anything can happen, man. Do you know what I mean? So this is the test, isn't it? This is really the test. And when I say favourable run of fixtures, that's kind of what I mean. Like up until the Arsenal game, we should be winning all of these games. Napoli, you know, okay, that, you know, that 100% you can't write off Conte, but I'm seeing Paphos, Palace, Napoli, West Ham, and I'm like, mate, that's 6 points in the Prem and 2 wins in the Champions League. You know, as far as I'm concerned, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you've made me feel a lot better about the run, to be honest, already. Like bringing in those factors, they definitely will have an impact. This is the funny thing about supporting Chelsea is as toxic as everything feels right now. If we go on that run and win all those games that you've just mentioned there, things just could really change and just, you know what I mean? Like we as football fans have such short memories. I always say this. We forget how we feel last year. We were at protests. We went on to win the Conference League, the tournament we were in. Then we went and lifted the Club World Cup and we thought we were going to be challenging for the Premier League. That all happened in the space of a year. We've only just started the year. Stranger things have happened, right? We could be on a much better feeling in a few months' time. I think like there are obviously very deep-rooted problems which do affect our football. We absolutely know that. We spoke at the start about the lack of experience, the hot and cold players who can't really be consistent game in, game out, adapting to a new coach right now. Mid-season as well, I think we shouldn't take it lightly. A coach coming in mid-season, it's bound to present challenges, but I think, you know, we do have to get behind the players at games because at the end of the day, I absolutely understand. We have our concerns. We do feel unhappy, but I still want us to have a good season.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
course,
Like both things can be true. I'm still rooting for the players. I still want to create a bit of a support system because they're struggling too. They're probably not happy with everything that's going down, but you know, they need us. We need them to do well. So, you know, the way that Rosenior will win us over is if he wins the players over, gets them playing playing good football and we're producing results. That's all we're interested in at the minute.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you talk about the Arsenal game. It's interesting because a lot of people said as soon as Ben White scored, that's it, ties over, right? No hope, nothing. But, with how that played out, I'm never going to say I'm happy with an Arsenal defeat because you can never catch me saying that.
Yeah, of course.
However, I think the fact that it's a goal deficit in a cup tie. Yes, I know we have to go to the Emirates and you don't win at the Emirates full stop, let alone when you're in the form we're in right now. But like I said, stranger things have happened, and when you're a Chelsea fan, you learn that very quickly. Yeah. So I'm not writing anything off. I am fully behind the players. We want to see them do well. This isn't like I want Rosenior to mess up so we could have a point to prove. Yeah. Not the case. We still need to be behind the team. Still need to support. Yeah. So if anyone thinks that's contradictory, sorry, but that's just how I feel about it.
No, I think that's the best message, man, and I think that's kind of like that's 100% how I am. Is like, I want to see change from the owners, the model. Do you know what I mean? I want to see ambition and directed kind of idea. Let's get some trophies and stuff. But at the same time, it's like I'm not going to not support the team and not support the manager, because what I am before anything is a football fan. Do you know what I mean? It's like that, and that will always be the primary thing for me. Like I get a bit of stick sometimes because I'm not quite as I'm not coming out and screaming Blueco out at the top of my lungs and stuff. If I'm honest, like I say, I mentioned it before. For me, I just don't think they committed to running the club for 10 years and investing a certain amount of money. And regardless of the absolute mess that it is at the moment, I think it's going to take something really, really crazy to see them out. So I just genuinely don't think getting them out is super realistic. But what I do think is realistic is having pressure put on them to change, right? In the short term. Long term, they can focus on the model. If in the short term, they've got the fans and they've got the team on side and we're getting results and the feeling is good. The truth of the fact is, the weird thing for me with the whole Blueco thing is there was a bit of talk about it. We're only ever talking about it when the results aren't very good. Do you know what I mean? And like you said, football fans, a lot of us got short memories. And, Moresca, when we were second in the Premier League, no one was going Blueco out. Do you know what I mean? No one was really talking about the owners there at that point. But obviously we went on that really, really bad run and here we are again. So, I think the message, a really important thing is the message still needs to be made. Do you know what I mean? Because even if we start winning games,
definitely,
the
problem still stands. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. This has been an absolutely brilliant chat, man. It's been so good to have you on. So I want to wrap up just with a pretty pointed question. Do you think the squad is good enough for a top 5 finish and to potentially win a trophy this season?
Yeah. It is. I think it is, and it should be an absolute must. I said this season, yes, I think that some of the players aren't good enough. That's not wild to say. But I think overall, with the kind of backbone we have of the players that are consistently performing, I know Mark Correa is having a bit of a dip right now, but I'd class him as a consistent performer, balanced out by Reece James. Of course, we're missing Levi Colwill massively, but still, we're fully fit. Colwill in front. We're not going to have Colwill, obviously, this season, but I'm saying like overall, my centre-back pairing is still very much a concern, so that is. But with like Caicedo performing consistently, Enzo, yes, he has his moments, but they've overall formed what we can say is a decent duo there as well. Cole Palmer, if he's back to his best, which I think, he's got them. We will see what happons, but and then having like an Estevao and still the wingers, Neto, Garnacho, we need more output from them, but that's not to say that we won't get that. Liam Delap, I have faith that you say could bag goals. I was actually shocked to hear the other day that João Pedro's got 7 goals in the league. I didn't think that was the case, but fair enough. That means, if you have a decent end to the season, you could maybe bag yourself 15 to maybe even under 20 goals. I don't know if that's absurd to say, but if we get him sort of in a much better position, or if Liam Delap is the one who's going to be starting over him, I think we'll see more goals hopefully from him. But those players, along with the kind of squad depth, we don't have much of it right now. Let's be real. Like, our benches are very weakened, but I still think it's good enough to finish in a top 5 spot. I would love to win a domestic cup. I also said that at the start of the season. I never thought we'd win the Premier League, but I thought, getting further into an admirable sort of Champions League run, seeing as we haven't been in it, would be lovely just for the experience of being in the Champions League for these players who have barely even, had a sniff of the competition. But a domestic trophy. I've been to our last 3 finals at Wembley that we've lost, and I'm sick of it. I want to see us win a trophy at Wembley.
Yeah, for sure.
So, right now it seems like a long road away, but it's doable. And like I said, stranger things have happened. But even so, if we can actually get into a bit of a run and finish in a Champions League spot, go and sign some experience in the summer, I think fans would be happy, because then that means, you're ready to kickstart next season on a high. But I think we are capable of doing both. We should be. This is what we dreamed of, right? We wanted to be in several competitions. We're a top club who has in the past played in several competitions and been successful in them. So I don't want to move the goalposts again. This is what we are used to doing. Yes, things have changed, but I think it's doable. It is doable. So we'll see how we get on.
100% agree.
Do you think we'll finish? We'll finish in a Champions League spot.
Yeah. For me, that's where I genuinely, at the start of the season, I was really excited by the Club World Cup and stuff, but I was looking at the squad we've got, I think Champions League and a trophy is what I want to see this season. And that hasn't changed, because I think the squad's good enough. Like I say, just over a month ago, we were second in the Premier League at the end of the day. So we've got the squad to perform. And it is now about whether Rosenior can get that same tune out of them. I'll leave you with one thought, right? One crazy thought. The last 2 times we won the Champions League, we changed our manager halfway through the season.
Mid-season. Yeah, but we had Super Tommy T at the wheel then.
Yeah,
so I'm not
but
sure.
Di Matteo the first time, and so this is the thing, is that Di Matteo had an amazing squad. Thomas Tuchel had a bad squad, but was an amazing manager. Now we've got a rubbish squad and a very not very experienced manager. So, it's probably not that likely. But as you said, stranger things have happened. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. Nina, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you're watching me, you've probably already watched Nina, right? Let's be completely honest, but she is on the run to 10k subs. If you haven't subscribed to her already, get over on her channel, where match reviews are absolutely priceless, and like I say, it's a genuine match goer's perspective, so always really interesting. Nina, thanks so much for coming on. Do you have any parting words for our lovely viewers?
Pleasure, Matt. No, I'd just say to everyone to subscribe to your channel as well, because you're doing some great work over here. Obviously, like I said at the start, you got all your tech, you've got some great points, very nice graphics. So yeah, it takes a lot of effort, guys. So make sure you subscribe and support, give him some love. And yeah, it's been really, really fun. So thank you.
You're welcome, mate. Absolutely a pleasure to have you on, and hope to have you on again in the future. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day, and myself and Nina will catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.